Hey everybody, this is Rydo and we are doing the 2018 end of the year Steam wishlist cleanup. We will be looking at games that start with the letter Q today, so there actually won't be that many. Which is, I guess, a great thing because the previous episodes have been really long and this will be a good opportunity to get in a short episode, and if anybody has missed any of the previous letters of the alphabet, including also the first episode which covered characters, numbers, and things like that, that would have been at the top of the wish list, this is a great day, I suppose, for you people to go back and watch them. So not really a ton of them. Let's see if I can explain what's going on very quickly. Very quickly, I have a Steam wishlist. It includes every game, or it's supposed to include every game that I want to buy, want to potentially cover. Something that has passed at least 2 levels of filtration. Unfortunately, because I look at new games that come out every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday during my live streams of Hearthstone, I look at every game that comes out on Steam, and I was adding those to the wish list, which then made it a huge mess, because then the wish list doesn't include just games that I actually wish to own, but also games that I might wish to own, but I'm holding on to see how many reviews they get and how good they are. I should have been putting them on the secondary follow list. That's what we're doing now, on top of just looking at games and seeing if they still have relevancy or if they're still worth playing in my mind. Also, by looking at games, we sometimes will get distracted and go and see some other games and actually add some games to the wish list and fill in gaps, which is not a big issue, but is kind of silly. So we'll use Cube, Q-U-B-E, Director's Cut as an example of what we're looking for. We're looking for red flags. Now, because this is going to be a shorter one, I could probably talk about what I know about a lot of these games, but I certainly don't know a lot, considering I don't own them and I haven't played them for the most part. There are a few games on the wish list that I have played before, but Cube is, if we'll watch the video, a third-person 3D, well, first-person 3D perspective puzzle game. This that is probably heavily inspired by Portal. A lot of puzzle games certainly were inspired by Portal. Honestly, I'm not sure that there really was a puzzle-centric 3D game that came out before that point. Now, Cube 1 doesn't have much of a story from what I hear, but then when Cube 2 comes out, there's a pretty heavy amount of storyline, and that was definitely a big part of Portal in itself, is that you weren't just solving random puzzles for no reason, you are solving puzzles in Portal to escape, save your life, and accomplish your goal. The abilities in Cube are to move different color cubes in different ways and interact with your environment in that way. It's definitely a game that's going to stay on my wish list, and we'll look at the red flags, to where red flags might have been that might have knocked it out. First and foremost, we'll look at the overall reviews up here. This one is 84% positive of 520 user reviews, so that gets a very positive rating system. Now, the system between whether a game is positive, very positive, or overwhelmingly positive has a little bit more to do with how many people reviewed it than the percentage. If there's only, say, 5 reviews and they're 100% positive, it won't get a rating at all. If there's 25 reviews and it's 100% positive, it still probably would only get labeled as positive. So Steam's didn't really ever explain its system. Also, this number of reviews is only people that actually bought the game through Steam, not people that activated it via key or got it for free. And if this game had a decent number of recent reviews in the last 30 days, there'd be a secondary amount of reviews here that would say indicate if maybe an update had happened and people don't like that. I kind of wonder if perhaps the director's cut of this game actually does add some story to it, but I wouldn't be surprised if it doesn't. Now, I have, for Chrome, basically every single plugin installed that works with Steam. So we have, I believe this is the Is There Any Deal plugin. It doesn't label itself like all the other plugins do. So it tells you the historic low price of this game, and you can see that from the Humble store you've been able to get this game for 99 cents compared to its current price at $9.99. That's a significant difference. Although we won't be looking too much at the price, except for in comparison to this other plugin that is here called How Long to Beat. If How Long to Beat has data, which quite often it doesn't, it'll tell you how many minutes or hours it takes to beat a game playing just the main story with extras, or playing like a completionist. If I were to see, for instance, in this case, that it took 20 minutes to beat this game and it was selling for $9.99, that would be a medium red flag to say, okay, this game, while the game itself might be good, the developer might be so greedy and have such bad business practices I may not want to support them. And of course I could buy a bundle here. Sometimes the Is There Any Deal plugin will show bundles that go to other websites, so you could buy a bundle from another website and end up with Steam keys. I don't believe, though, it will point you to any website that will get you the game on a different store, so it's not going to point you to something like Good Old Games. We will tend to ignore a lot of the main parts of the Steam page. We'll want to try to figure out if games have a solid single player experience, because I'm not capable really of reviewing a multiplayer game. My experience playing one single multiplayer game with several random people might be very different from other people's experience, and then it really comes down to me just criticizing the gameplay mechanics at that point, because there won't be any story, and I'm so centered around story when I criticize things, I just probably wouldn't do a good job reviewing a multiplayer game, and I just don't play multiplayer games. We'll keep out an eye on the languages. If we find a game that is English and Russian only, or English and simplified, or traditional Chinese, those games have a tendency to be a little bit higher on the ratio of what I call very low effort games. Steam calls them troll games. They're very bad games that aren't worth existing on Steam, in my opinion. So we might fall down to looking at the languages, but I've yet to see anything that made it through the first pass onto my wish list that actually was a troll game. Maybe I've run into one. If we get in question, we would click on the developer and the publisher up here and see if this game is, say, in good company, if the developer has made other games that are highly reviewed, or if it's in bad company because this developer or publisher has released a bunch of bad games. We have I believe it's an OpenCritic plugin that puts this in. It sometimes says Metacritic, it sometimes says OpenCritic. I believe it's part of the same plugin that puts in these reviews in line with this. And we won't be doing too much with that because I really don't feel like I'm 100% in line with most mainstream video game journalist reviews these days. I agree with some of what they say, but not so much that a generic boiled down number on Metacritic or OpenCritic really means anything. If a game has Oculus Rift or VR support of any kind, We may have to come into the description and make sure the game is still playable outside of VR. I'm fairly certain this one is. Let's see. Yeah, it says it's... generally speaking, there should be a red bar at the top warning you if it requires VR. Here we have Steam Charts plugin, which will tell you by their numbers, which are probably not super accurate, but they're the best you're going to get, about how many people are playing now, what is the maximum number of people playing at the same time today, and what is the maximum number of people playing at the same time over the lifetime of the game. For single player games, which is mostly what I'm looking at, this information isn't super useful. If I saw an all-time peak of 5 and the game is like 3 years old, it then falls out of relevancy. If it's just this game that's lost to time and nobody even gave it a chance. Sometimes, though, a lot of times you'll see games with barely an all-time peak of 100 or so. So even though that is a particularly low number in my opinion, it's not too low to be concerning. And then we have Steam Spy, which tells you the average play time. So for this game, it's 1 hour and 41 minutes. Generally, the average play time is somewhere around a third to a quarter of the amount of time it takes to beat this game. So if we were to say this is 2 hours, just rounded up, the entirety of playing the game is probably somewhere shy of 6 hours, if I was to guess. Maybe 8 hours if you play as a completionist. But the average playtime one assumes is everybody who launches the game for a minute and then never plays it again, and everybody who leaves the game running for hundreds and hundreds of hours. If we were looking more at a multiplayer game, average playtime in the last 2 weeks, all-time peak would make a lot more sense, because that really speaks to how active the community is that's playing this game right now. But single player games, it really doesn't matter that much. There's a lot of video games on Steam, so that doesn't mean anything. The fact that there's only 3 minutes of playtime in the last 2 weeks probably isn't a big deal. We won't really be using the performance survey at all, and if we get desperate, we might look at something that is recommended by Steam. Steam's recommendation engine is kind of pathetic. Like, some things will be accurate, but some things will be completely off, and it's all just really based on the most popular user tags, which generally those are accurate. Here we have Portal 1, which is a Valve product, and Valve owns Steam, so it's a little self-promotion there. Here you have Cube 2, which, no duh, and Quantum Conundrum, certainly. Then Enigma Prism. There was a whole list of games that were basically Portal clones, and most of them I think did alright jobs, not totally terrible jobs. Here's Portal 2. Portal 2 really raised the bar on the graphics. The thing that often you'll run into for the bad Portal clones is that the gameplay mechanic or the levels themselves are just not super useful or super fun to play. So that was just like all of them I just opened to look at. And if this game was in question, we'd come down and look at the reviews. Generally speaking, I don't want to read the positive reviews. I would put about 10 positive reviews as equal 1 negative review. I'm not looking for something that is super short. So if you love Portal, you love this too, enough said. It's not a very helpful review. But I'm also not looking for something that is incredibly long. This one seems like Let's see. So if I was in question, this negative review would be the one I would skim to make the decision. And I really am coming from the perspective of trying to whittle down the wish list, but I also don't want to miss hidden gems. You may also notice that the Steam key indicates a lot of these reviews are activated by key, where this symbol means purchase directly. And then sometimes you'll see this game was received for free, or this was like a pre-release review. But a couple of negative reviews does not beat out the 84% of 520 reviews. So I have to be a little careful there also. So then I opened like this, which is called Collab, that came out in 2016 and requires VR. So I'm never gonna really own VR. Here's the notice. So this is not something that I'd inherently want to put on the wish list or the follow list, where we have something here that could clearly go on the follow list. This could be actually an asset flip, but it could be a very good game too. The problem now that we've hit is asset flips look so incredibly good that it is totally possible that you will be tricked by them, and you have to look a little bit more carefully to see if you see menu UIs, enemies, any kind of AI, any kind of gameplay mechanic. And a lot of these games really are just flying cinematics with nothing else in them. Best I could tell, for example, in this game is that there's going to be a point where you have to light up bricks, the glowing tower, bricks on top of these glowing towers, and that's the main thing here. So I just copied this game and put it in the follow column that I have to the right of my screen. I have 4 columns, one to remove it from the wish list, remove a game from the wish list completely. Now we're starting to see some gameplay. One to put it at the top of the wish list, one to ignore the game completely, which really I probably won't use. I only have like 3 games that I've ever ignored. And then one to put it to the follow list. And as far as the follow list, that's the list that I'm gonna wait till the end of 2019 and look at those games, and we'll see if they meet the threshold of having at least 25 reviews, which is the line I've drawn in the sand, and see where those reviews are. So there will be a lot of games on the follow list that looked good, but actually didn't play that well or didn't get well received for some other reason, and we'll look at the follow list and go, no, these need to be removed from the follow list, or we'll find games that are rated very well, and then they will graduate at that point from the follow list to the wish list. And then somewhere around 2020 we'll come back and look at the wish list again and probably do some cleanup. There is also a point to be made here of the fact that there are categories of games, as we now look at Enigma Prison, another to be announced game. There are definitely categories of games that I need to make decisions on, and right now and in the reasonable future, I know I'm just going to be crippled with indecision on them. Those types of games are RPGs and JRPGs. Whether or not how many of those games I'm going to cover. Visual novels, whether I'm going to cover any of those. There are some adult games certainly that I would like to cover and I'd like to own, but I'm not sure exactly how, if it's ever going to be possible you could cover it, since YouTube and Twitch have become even more increasingly conservative on those things. So very well, some games get flagged with sexual content or nudity, and it's like one scene that I could easily edit out. Sometimes it's just a non-stop barrage of games. I could have sworn I saw somebody actually playing this game, Enigma Prison. Maybe not. Maybe I've just seen this trailer before. The point-and-click games I'm a sucker for, so I have a lot of point-and-click games. I probably should maybe tighten my requirements as far as whether a game deserves to be on the wish list or not. I'm also getting rid of, I have made the decision that I'm getting rid of at least most of the hidden object games on the wish list, but there's certainly RPGs and JRPGs in particular are major commitments in time. So I'm going to put Enigma Prison, since it's brand new, also on the wish list. Not the wish list, the follow list. I wish the two names were slightly different. Here we have one called Tartarus, which looks really good but is mixed reviewed. So it might be interesting to see why it's mixed reviewed. The Talos Principle is a great example of a 3D puzzle game. I need to play the DLC on that at some point. Puzzles do not make sense. Boring, dull, no story, linear challenge, mostly involving MS-DOS. See, this is one of these examples of just too long, no line breaks in the review. Very little going for it besides the general atmosphere and puzzles. Everything else in between is mad at most, and the ending is a bit... let's see. So, there is also some interesting points, incredibly short for the price, and the end is unbelievably irritating. There's also a argument to be made, certainly, about walking simulators and puzzle games like this, and kind of horror games too. Like, it seems like if you can just add a little bit of puzzles into a walking simulator, then you can call it a puzzle game, and it will just be a mediocre mixed reviewed puzzle game like this. And if you just add a little bit of horror into it, then you've got a mediocre mixed reviewed horror game. Now this is from Night Dive Studios, who are known for, I think, bringing back or remaking old games. I know Night Dive. I'm trying to remember what this is. No, this is Spirits of Xanadu. Is not something I recognize as a game. It doesn't look amazingly good graphics. A little polygonal. But it's 74% positive, and I'm not holding anything to a really high standard as far as positive reviews either. It's just, if it is positive basically at all. This doesn't really look that interesting. A 2015 game that seems almost like an experiment or a project. Let's see, 3 to 4 hours of gameplay. Let's see. You can see. Spirits of Xanadu was made by a team of 2 people, so many of its faults are understandable. However, I reviewed the game based on how much I actually enjoyed them, and I did not enjoy Spirits of Xanadu. It has some redeeming qualities such as unique visuals, palpable atmosphere at first, decent shooting, and even a few fun Easter eggs, but the flaws are already enumerated are overwhelming. I can't recommend this game to anyone, as there wasn't enough quality content to justify the time. And see, I think I kind of agree with that review, even though this is mostly positive. Looking at the visuals, being a very visual person, knowing the types of games I want to play, this doesn't look like it's up there in quality. And Night Dive brings back, yeah, old games, so they have like Turok 2, the humongous games like Freddy Fish and Pajama Sam, which are kids point and click adventure games, which are just being run through an emulator, so it's kind of lazy. Let's see. Night Dive has 11th Hour, which is an old horror point and click adventure game. Doesn't really seem like they have anything new, though, interestingly enough. And I'm trying to get away from any kind of mentality where I would play a game just because it's from a publisher or a developer that I know. This is actually the only game from this development team, so I assume the 2 developers that worked on this game moved on to something else. So I'm gonna go ahead and close that. And then we have Alone in Space, which looks pretty but is mixed reviewed. It's very possible to do something that is close to an asset flip game and it look very good but just play very badly. And that's when you demote, you should probably halfway through development of your game demote it down to a animated movie. Let's see. Liked the concept, but it felt barely implemented and several plots didn't make sense. I haven't finished it, but I can't see it getting any better, so I'm calling it only some way through. And you probably went for a refund because of the under 2 hours automatic refund rule. Game looks more like a demo than a real game. It takes only 4 to 5 hours to complete, and the riddles are repetitive. Endless corridors, no aim even after you cross approximately 30 gates. Game is long and boring. It repeats the same few puzzles over and over. Not worth your time. So we're seeing a lot of negative reviews that seem very realistic and believable. And we're supposed to be looking at games that start with Q, but I opened so many other games to look at. Let's see. Downward is a first-person open-world parkour game. It's always a little suspicious when you have so many descriptors for your game. And now the screenshots don't want to load. Let's watch the video. I've had several games on my wish list that were open world parkour games. For some reason, people think they can make games like that easily, when really, in my opinion, an open world parkour game would be a very, very difficult game to make. And it really is left for a AA producer or a AAA producer, somebody with a lot of money and a lot of resources and a lot of experience. Denwood looks good though, so I'm gonna double check. It probably is already on the wish list, but it's been so long since I did the game starting with D, I don't remember. In all honesty, I probably don't remember most of the games at all. That it's become this incredibly long list of games. And then we have Ela Episode 1. I try to avoid episodic games too. Like, that's a concern. This looks like it's a sci-fi adventure. Well, this one I could put on the follow list because it's less than a year old. So I'll just put this on the follow list and we'll come back and see if there's an episode 2. There probably need to be some secondary passes that I do on the wish list to make sure I have every game that is out in early access moved to the follow list, because I wasn't really paying attention to see if that was the case. And to have us have a probably remove a couple other things for different reasons, but I don't think I'll probably make another video for that. I do think, however, and I guess I can announce that now, I have made a slight decision. Now that we're at Cube 2, this was literally the second game that we actually were supposed to see before I opened all the other games. The letter T, so we're on Q, so there will be an episode for R and S, and then T. I imagine R and S they will be long videos going into the 3 or 4 hour and maybe even the 5 hour length. I don't think they're going to be incredibly long, so there'll probably be one episode, but I'm fairly certain on the T's what's going to happen is there will be a very long list of games that start THE space something. So it's going to be The Hopper, The Adventure, The Best Game in the World, to make up some game names. So what I'm thinking, after we get past all games that start THE, that will probably be the point where we break up an episode for one day and we'll do a second episode, a part 2 of T's. Just because I'm concerned that there is a good chance if I do all of the T's in one run that it will be a 10-hour video. The good news is, while there's 27 episodes that I should be making, assuming we don't skip a letter at some point, which is sort of unlikely. I'm pretty sure there's at least one game by every letter of the alphabet on my wish list. So that would give us 27 episodes for the 31 days of December. So we have room to push this series a little bit longer by, I guess, 4 episodes if necessary. I doubt we'll do that. You can see here in the video, Cube 2 seems to move a lot more. This demo has the character running and jumping and moving their hands around, manipulating cubes a lot more than the first game. Cube 2 is to 83% positive of 330 users. An argument certainly could be made that you don't really need to play the first game, but as a video game critic, I'd like to do that. I'd like to see where this developer, Toxic Games, which is an interesting name, since video game journalists in particular love to throw around toxic gamers as a phrase, and I think one would think game development companies would try to stay away from that phrase. Although, you know what, a lot of game developers are also calling their own fan base toxic gamers, but I don't want to get into a rant about it. This one goes a little greedy with a season pass, and the season pass, one assumes, gives you more content. We'll look at it. It's 5 to 7 hours for $24.99. That is incredibly expensive. Even at its historical low price, it's of $12.49. That's pretty expensive, but it is also brand new, so one assumes this will fall down in price. I think there is a danger, certainly, of outpricing your own game so people don't buy it, but then there is also a desire, like, I'm really not sure how a developer that makes a game like this could become a AAA developer in a short amount of time, which is certainly what a lot of small developers would like to see happen. What usually happens is there has to be a lot of outside investment, and then that causes its own problems. The Turing Test is another example of a game that should already be on my wish list. But you may notice that some of these are the exact same games we just looked at. Some of these are new recommendations. Some of these games I already own, certainly. But yeah, the fact that the same games, for the most part, 7 out of 10, it feels like, of the games recommended here were the same as Cube 1, shows you that their recommendation engine is not that good. Steam doesn't really do a good job of promoting lesser known small games. It is more about getting people to buy the top 10% of quality games, and then they really don't care if you ever find that hidden gem that was developed by one person and published independently. You can see here that I don't believe this developer has made anything else, and they haven't announced anything. This is the Steam developer beta pages, which confuse the issue, particularly because what will happen is often you'll click on a developer's name and end up on the publisher's name. For example, here, Toxic Game Studios came up, but I clicked Trapped Nerve Games. But it's a shame it does that, but it also solves a major problem where you would click on a lot of developers and publishers and they've only developed that one game you're already looking at, so it's not like Steam was giving you any helpful information in the first place. I guess in general I'd just like there to be a button somewhere that says, you clicked on Trapped Nerve Games, would you like to see that, or would you like to stay here because we automatically redirected you to Toxic Games, the developers page. The Turing test is rated very positively. It's another puzzle games. Each of these puzzle games slightly different in their environment, their story, and their gameplay mechanics, but they tend to stay all the same. I don't know how you could get away from calling them not puzzle Portal clones, because Portal was so groundbreaking, at least in my experience, and I love Portal 1 and 2 so much. Any 3D environment puzzle game would have to do something really crazy, and mostly I guess it would have to change its art style away from being realistic. If you made a 3D environment, say puzzle game that had a bunch of anime characters in it, I probably at that point, because I'm so visually based, would not call it a Portal clone, just because I would see a division there. Whereas the Turing test has a pretty different gameplay mechanic, but still very much feels like a Portal clone, which is not a bad thing. Next we have Cube 2, the Season Pass. I've noticed some weirdness on the wishlist that sometimes if I remove a game and I have DLC for that game, it's not showing up on the wish list, even though it is still clicked and tagged like it's on the wish list. So I don't know if that's some new adaptation that they've done to make it more efficient, so you can't buy games for DLC that you don't own, which that would be helpful. Having DLC on my wish list might be a little dangerous, because I'm asking people as one way to support me. If they're not going to just support me through Patreon directly, I'm asking people to friend me on Steam and gift me a game off of the wishlist, or, you know, it doesn't have to be on the wishlist. In fact, they don't even have to pick. They could just send me a gift card too. But if there's DLC on the wishlist and people gift me that DLC, then okay, now I own that DLC. Now I have to find some extra money I wasn't planning on spending to buy the game. And sometimes it works the opposite way. Somebody will gift me a game and then I have to find the extra money to buy the DLC, because I don't really want to cover a game unless it has DLC. So this season pass will include Lost Orbit Puzzle Pack 1, and a original glove skin and the soundtrack. Something slightly interesting, I guess, about the idea of getting a soundtrack with a season pass. It also puts you in a weird position, I guess. Now that I see Puzzle Pack 2 is to be announced, I guess this part means I should put Cube 2 on the follow list. I don't want to play Cube 2 until that second bit of DLC is out. So I'm gonna put the season pass and the main game of Cube 2 on the fall list and wait. But in all honesty, I could probably play Cube 1 and then wait 6 months, and then the second part of the DLC will be out by that point. Next we have Cube, spelled QBEH-1, the Atlas Cube. Let's see. All of these are very pretty in their environments. And a lot of these look rather similar. Let's watch the video and see how this plays. It's rated 87% positive of 475 user reviews. It's from a different developer, Liquid Flower and Digital Tribe. Honestly, these are the kind of games. See, yeah, this looks a lot like that other game that we were looking at, but I guess there's only so many different ways you can place a square on a square. These really do feel like the kind of projects you would want to see a student who is learning to program video games. Oh, that's interesting. A gravity affecting cube, because you're not really having to program a lot of AI in this instance. You're just placing blocks and programming things to move around in set paths. This is what it feels like a good indie developer could make. It's often very strange when you see games released on Steam that are made with flat 2D graphics that wouldn't have been acceptable 15 years ago, and they're making some platformer, 2D platformer game where you're running around collecting coins, and that's about it. Certainly, if you are just a programmer, you can't do the graphics to the level that we're seeing here, but that's where the Unity Asset Store or the Unreal Asset Store comes in. When you see a 3D game like this, you kind of have to assume that it is running on an engine, and being able to program to an industry standard engine is very important. What is not an industry standard engine would be something like RPG Maker, and there is a ridiculously large amount of RPG Maker games that get released on Steam, and they all look terrible. They all look exactly the same and not entertaining. And in all honesty, a game like this probably is closer to something that could have been a second year or third year programmer's project, not even something that they would do as a thesis or for fourth year. This is if you're in a college and learning programming and you're not working towards making something like this, you're probably not getting a very good education. As someone who is classically trained in programming, but then also attended classes that were not centered around video game programming, I can attest to the frustration of being given projects to sort employee names and run like accounting software that really has only a very tangential relationship to the type of programming I wanted to do. There's no reason for this to be removed from the wish list, though. We could look and see if there's perhaps anything else this developer has made. This developer's game came out in 2014, generally speaking. After 4 years, I assume a company has abandoned their name, so I would, at this point, pretty much expect Liquid Flower to never make another game at all. That's not a problem, it just means if this was a game that was to be continued and an unfinished story, I probably would move it to the follow list or remove it from the wish list in general, particularly if it was a 2013 game, just one more year. This game has a level editor and Steam Workshop. That doesn't really affect my decision much, but it does seem to imply that at least they know what they're doing to try to add some value to this game. Again, another game that has been on sale for 99 cents, but it's $10 right now, undiscounted. So price often is a factor here. I'll put games on the wish list and wait till they get very, very cheap. But that certainly has messed me up before too, because I've certainly bought a bunch of 99 cents games that were not worth playing. This publisher is kind of a mixed bag of games, so I don't think you can really take too much from that. Tiny Keep, I think, was a game that I was gonna, might have been on the wish list. Deadlock, I think, is a game that's probably on the follow list. Some of these games feel familiar, but most of these games don't. So it really feels like a mixed bag. Let's see. Tiny Keep is 67% positive as a Dungeon Keeper clone that is probably not as good as the other couple of Dungeon Keeper clones that are on Steam. Let's see what the negative reviews. An okay game that could have used a bit more work. The camera is the biggest problem. Okay. Let's see. Doesn't start. That's not very helpful review. Game has a lot of flaws. The permadeath is ruthless in what is not really a roguelike, not worth playing past your road traveler. So people are not liking Tiny Keep, but I wouldn't be surprised if some of the other games that are recommended here, actually, nope. War for the Overworld is a Dungeon Keeper clone, and something else is a Dungeon Keeper clone. And this is a VR mixed game that's early access. Yeah, I don't recognize it. It doesn't look particularly interesting. It's 68% positive of 16 user reviews from 2016. And when you get in a scenario like that, you just have to make a decision, because if I waited another year, this game is not going to have any more reviews. It will stay almost certainly for the rest of its life at 16 reviews. Moving on, we're going to start speeding up a little bit here. We have QOP, which is a minimalistic, what I call a one-screen Unity puzzle game. I've covered a lot of these. I like these. They're not terrible. They're always a little bit different, and I'll play them until I'm frustrated with them for the most part, and usually they have too many puzzles. QOP is just a sliding game with a twist, I suppose. It's rated 90% positive. It's 295 reviews. So yeah, you're this black piece you have to press in different directions to adjust where this is going to be. There was a YouTuber who mostly made Minecraft mods that made a game in 3D that was somewhat like this, and then he released that game on Steam, and it didn't really get any sales, but I would like to cover it because it's slightly interesting. I think his name was Jesper the End, if you want to try to find his YouTube channel. I don't think he makes too much anymore. In fact, there was quite a few Minecraft YouTubers that I followed that have long since stopped making any content. Next we have Quadrilateral Cowboy. Actually, I want to come back and see if this developer has made anything else. They've made the Zup series, which, if Zup is not on my wish list, I would have considered it if it weren't for the fact that there's like 7 of them. That feels really, really cheap. And there's like 3 of these too. How much did they want for this? 99 cents? Is this acceptable at this point? Is it okay to make a cheap 99 cents game that can be as low as 59 cents? I think you might even be able to get the price down to 49 cents on Steam. There's a certain minimum. This is an achievement game. I forgot to talk about these red flags. 252 achievements. And these achievements look like letters so you can spell things out. So this game will have higher reviews than normal because people for some reason want to get achievements on Steam. Steam doesn't even highlight achievements unless you get 100% of them. Achievement games though will get you 100% of them. Lots of achievements and fun puzzles to solve. Well worth the price for the hour of fun you get out of it. Generally speaking, I don't want to encourage achievement games. This one also has trading cards. So this is actually going to get removed. But also, very, very possible I would have not caught that. It wasn't until I started looking and seeing how they were releasing the same game over and over again. Which, at a certain level, is a violation of Steam's agreement and licenses. You're not allowed to put the same game over and over, or very similar games out. Moving on though, we have Quadrilateral Cowboy. This is a hacking game that has a little bit of a 3D experience. Let's see if this video is going to mostly be silliness or if it's actually going to show gameplay. So this might be worth playing, it might not. You have to put down the computer and program things around the environment and hack those things. And then there's, I believe, a few scenarios that you're sort of going through. This is a game that very possibly has too much style and not enough substance. But it is 91% positive. And we could look at what else this developer has made. I remember 5 to 7 hours of gameplay, 81 on Metacritic. I remember at least Giant Bomb reviewed this game, so it definitely got some hype. Let's see, what else have they made? Flotilla 2 looks like it's a brand new game that's in VR. 30 Flights of Loving was another game that was hyped, and you can see it's rated mixed. Atomic Zombie Smasher looks like it's a different type of game. I didn't see anybody cover that one. There's always this problem with these kind of weirdo games, because you never really know if they're getting hyped because they're paying for consideration, or if they're getting hyped because the journalists who talk about them are all friends with the developers, or if the journalists, maybe they just get more clicks and more views when they play weirdo games. Certainly as a YouTube video game critic, the weirder the game is, the more reviews and views I'll likely get. At least it feels like that. See, I think if I will just grow a spine for a second, I think I could double check to make sure that this is not on the wish list, or you know what, I could actually just close it because we'll look at it during tease. But you know what, I'll just remove it if it's there. I'll just put it on the remove list right now. I've already made the decision because I don't want to play 30 Flights of Loving. But I really probably should remove Quadrilateral Cowboy too. There's plenty of other hacking games out there that are more about the hacking. This also does not look particularly interesting. So this is I guess, great example of not every game is on the wish list just because it's reviewed well. If that was the case, the wish list would be huge. And this is their newest game that Blendo Games is developing. Seems to have some kind of sneezing mechanic in it. It seems like, yeah. Seems like they're taking the concept of escaping a hospital and adding some ridiculous elements to it. They still very much seem like they're too weird for their own good. It really feels like. Let's see. Yeah, there's a lot of other hacking games. I think Quadrilateral Combo could be removed. For example, Exapunk's Hacknet are both on the wish list. Some of these other ones, not so much. TIS 100 is on the wish list. The only thing that Quadrilateral Cowboy might be offering is the idea of running around this very specific world, doing this very specific weird thing. Which I guess maybe that does make this game stand out a little bit. So I can't grow that spine after all. I'm going to leave this on the wish list. It caught me on the last second. I was very close to removing it, but it caught me at the last second. It is unique in a certain way. Wanted to look at this. This is a visual novel, free-to-play game. And let's see. The thing I wanted to see is if it had full audio, which it doesn't. This looks like it's a slightly more Western animation style, not a Japanese visual novel, which the vast majority of games are Japanese. And even though the publisher says it's an anime, the fact that it's not in Japanese, the fact that it's not going for what is the current anime moe style, implies to me it isn't. Yeah, I'm gonna add this to the wish list, or yeah. I'm still trying to find good Western visual novels to try to balance out for Eastern visual novels, because it really would be like a 30-to-1 ratio at least, if not 100-to-1 ratio of Japanese visual novels if I was going to cover any of them. But then there is also some weirdness in, and I'm still trying to get my head around the idea of doing some kind of forced equality, forced equity, equal outcome, where I'm giving special preference to Western visual novels when, in all honesty, they don't have any relevancy. And then we're going to get into the Quake games. So this is kind of pretty easy, and we're going to get through these, I think, rather fast, because Quake has the issue of being a popular enough Doom clone to gain traction in history. It's an id Soft game series. There's a lot of reason for me to own these games and play them and cover them, even if it is only going to be 30-minute spotlights. Honestly, I've never played any of the Quake games, and there's probably not a lot to say in 2018 about a game that came out in 1996 that's a Doom clone. It's also very potentially, this is just one of those games I want to own so then I could get a ROM of it, or take the ROM out of this actual version of the game and run it on an emulator. But even in that instance, that's not the case here, because I really have no desire to play Quake. It's just so highly relevant. It's a part of video game history, and if you don't know your history, then you're not a very good video game critic, are you? It went on to be consumed by Bethesda, and certainly it, I think, made Doom, and I'm not sure if any of these other games that Bethesda published are from the id side of that company. But yeah, it becomes really much impossible to not want to own this entire collection. Mission packs, Quake 3 Arena. I'm not 100% sure that there is a recent Quake game, but yeah, there's no reason why it would leave the wish list. You can see Quake 2's graphics kind of took a massive amount of improvement over the course of just about a year. These games are rated extremely positive because people have nostalgia for them. Quake 2 mission pack, even this looks slightly better, and it's mixed reviewed though. This is Ground Zero. This is The Reckoning, and The Reckoning is rated very positively. And this one was actually developed by a different team, but it probably doesn't matter. Then you get into Quake 3 Arena, and Quake eventually, I think, evolved from being so much a Doom clone into a rocket jumping, shoot your friends, player versus player arena game. I don't think there's much of a single player experience that you can have in Quake 3 Arena, whereas 1 and 2 seems like it has more of a story element. And this came out in '99. I think they did make a new Quake game that they're trying to bring it back as just a multiplayer game, but it's hardly likely to defeat the likes of Fortnite or Battlegrounds. Quake 3 Team Arena from 2000 probably would just do a spotlight. And then from 2000 to 2005, it seems like nothing was made, which was Quake 4. And honestly, Quake 4 looks polished enough that it's a reasonable game. Something that I could probably play from beginning to end. The graphics look good enough. It's probably somewhat connected to the previous games, but I imagine with 5 years of difference between the previous game and this one, it doesn't really have that much that you would have to recap. Not a lot being described, certainly. 18 people have played it today. So yeah, I probably would play all the previous games for 30-minute spotlights to work up to play Quake 4, and then that would be the way I would enter the Quake series. But I'm fairly certain that there isn't going to be more Quake single-player experiences. At least if there are going to be new Quake experiences, they haven't been announced by Bethesda. And here we have Quake Live that came out in 2010, which is, again, just player versus player. Is this really the game I'm thinking about? Did it come out 8 years ago? Or is there another one? Again, I seriously doubt that there's actually any single player experience here. Yeah, this doesn't feel right though. Feels like they remade another game since then. So it was 5 years from 2005 to 2010 for this game to come out, so they're really not spending a lot of time here. And this is a mission pack, again from 97. And then this is another mission pack from 2007. And then we're there. And so I guess the only thing I could do here to see if there was actually any other Quake games. Ah, yes, Quake Champions, free to play. So Quake Champions came out in 2017, so 7 years after Quake Arena Live, and it's a player versus player style game. The graphics look pretty good, but you can see nobody's super positive about it. Its overall lifetime review is 69% positive of 19,171 reviews. This was a free-to-play game that is still in early access. A year later, they were adding characters, I know, at a certain point, but this was kind of not, I think, what people wanted. I think there are people who are still playing the old Quake games, and those people are having fun with those old Quake games, and there really is no audience for any new Quake game unless they're going to do a single player reboot of the series like they did the reboot of Doom, which probably wouldn't be a terrible idea. That being said, I know what the story of Doom is. I know it's this Doomslayer character who is in a hellish world on the moon. That never really made a lot of sense, and you're running around and killing zombies. I have no clue what the story for Quake is at all. So the upgrade pack, I think, was a big part of this, is that you could play a rotating selection of people that this is interesting. This product is not eligible for refund. I didn't think they could do that, particularly in some countries. That's straight up illegal. But the truth of the matter, I think, is you kind of have to buy the Champions pack upgrade for $40, so it's a $40 game that's hiding like a free-to-play game. Seems like there's microtransactions also on top of it. And let's see. They've, as recently as a few days ago, as of this recording, have added another champion. But not a lot of people are happy with it. That being said, its all-time peak, because it's more of an online game, was 17,332 players, and even today 2,714 people have played the game. So it's hardly a dead game series. It's just not super. Let's see, everything that was Quake, this isn't. Seriously, this is the worst guns look and feel worse. Let's see, people don't like the graphics engine, they don't like the netcode or the sound. Wow. Or active abilities, which I don't think previous games had active abilities. Let's see. Still nothing about performance issues, abilities balance, classic dual mode, UI changes. You can try and play it, but don't buy the champ pack, it's not worth it. This is exactly how early access shouldn't be handled. ZeniMax is the parent company of Bethesda, and it is a multi-billion-dollar company, and they've just kind of pooped out this game, it seems. And then that brings you into this weird point where, does Quake even have any relevancy? I don't know. That's probably why I would never get around to buying Quake. And see, this is going to be a controversial statement, certainly, but the truth is I probably would never get around to buying any of the Quake games and covering them. I am much more likely to play Doom and cover Doom, because that makes a lot more sense. I think I own most of the old Doom games that I would probably spotlight before playing the Doom reboot, which I think I also own, and that would make a lot more sense before I touched a single Quake game. Moving forward, we have Quantum Break. I'm a little surprised Quantum Break is rated so highly positive, 84% positive reviews of 756 reviews. The reason for that is Quantum Break did not run well in the Xbox version, I think, and particularly in the Windows Store version. So the question comes down to, did Remedy Entertainment and Microsoft Studios somehow, over the amount of time that it took for this to come to Steam, polish the product up and make a good experience? Because this is a 2016 game, and I believe it was added to Steam early 2018. Now, as for the game itself, it's kind of weird, because they wanted to make this a video game with an interactive TV series, and so your decisions would affect cutscenes in the TV series. I don't know exactly how any of that works now, if those cutscenes are integrated. They were like live action cutscenes with the same actors that I think they face scanned into this game. And as for the actual gameplay mechanics, it really is just a first-person shooter with some time manipulation abilities. And I don't think it's particularly that long of an experience either. So there's a lot of caveats for Quantum Break, but I guess I kind of would want to play it. See if we could get it down to $9.99. $10 seems about right on the price. 10 to 18 hours of gameplay. Kind of want to see what the negative reviews are on this. Made by the same studio of Alan Wake. I actually didn't like Alan Wake and didn't even play the DLC on it. See if this review goes into more detail. This is one of those reviews that's way too long. takes what should be a really cool idea and ends up failing to deliver on it. It feels like it made the promise of being a much better game than it actually was and broke it. It's hard to say whatever that makes it. So this is a kind of a game where if you're on the hype train, you're not gonna have a good experience. So there's so many glitches, so many don't buy this game, bad optimization, and that was just a few weeks ago. But I'm not seeing a lot of them. A lot of problems here. Let's see. TV cutscenes, I guess, are inside the actual game. People have played it for the average play time is extremely high here. Yeah, so I guess Quantum Break figured out its problems and fixed it. That being said, I don't think I'm gonna put this at the top of my wish list. I'll just leave it on the wish list. Yeah, Alan Wake was removed from Steam because they lost the license to some music in it, and then Microsoft Studios renegotiated the license after a few months of it being unavailable for purchase, and now it's back. Now I hear Alan Wake's American Nightmare is better, and I think I own that game, so I very possibly will get around to playing it, but I'm not super interested in playing it, honestly. The main problem with Alan Wake, though, is you're playing this horror game where you have to shine a flashlight for a very long time on enemies before you can shoot them and hurt them, and that just made a very bad experience. Or Quantum Break would not suffer from that. So it's also from the developer that's working on this game, Control, which has some interesting looking cutscenes, but it too might be not much of an actual game. This was announced at E3 this year. My fear with this is that there's going to be very few encounters. The story, as it seems to be, is you're in charge of this crazy facility that collects crazy cursed objects, and the facility locks down, and you have this weird gun that's always shifting and changing, and often just disappearing from your hand. Also seems like you can just fly at times, and the whole building's rearranging itself. Very surreal. Seems like a lot of the employees have been infected by some kind of demonic force. So you've got like a lot of visuals here. Lots and lots of visuals. It feels a lot like a BioShock, potentially, telekinesis abilities. But when this is an actual finished product and how long it is and how much of a game it is really where it's gonna have to be evaluated on. I think Remedy Entertainment in particular is too into telling weird sci-fi stories, so they've got like a good writer, but I don't think that they have a great what would I call it, as good of a video game programming set. As publisher is 505 Games, which when you click on 505 Games, instead of seeing Control, you see a long list of other kinds of games that you would not put in the same category. Moving on, we have Quantum Conundrum. This is a puzzle first-person platforming game. It's more of a kid-friendly looking game. I'm not sure if it really is kid-friendly. So no video here? Interesting. It is rated E for everyone. So Seems like there is a large amount of puzzle games starting with the letter Q. I don't know why that would specifically be the case. None of these screenshots really do this game justice, but it's rated 83% positive, so I'll put it on the wish list. It's from a developer who has made a couple of bad games and a couple of good games. Let's see. Seems like there's a sequel I'm not aware of. Aiki Ramba. Then I'm pretty sure Murdered Soul Suspect is already on the wish list. Let's see. This is DLC. That's mixed reviewed. What does it do? Yeah, more puzzles. See, this is a probably great example of DLC that fails because nobody who plays Quantum Conundrum probably ever even saw or knew it existed, or they played Quantum Conundrum when it came out in like 2012 and never thought about buying the DLC. The Taos Principle is a great example of that too. That their DLC, The Road to Gehenna, I got it, but I got it so late after I had played the main game. I had zero interest in going back and doing it, or maybe I had a little bit of interest, but not a lot. As far as Murdered Soul Suspect, I'm pretty sure we've already talked about this. It's a adventure detective mystery with some magic and sci-fi in it. It's from one of the main Japanese developers who makes weird games, like Suda51 or somebody like that. It doesn't say who actually made it, but I think that was already on the wish list. Next we have Quantum Replica, which says it's a cyberpunk stealth game. Let's see if any of these things will actually load. Hide in time as you explore cyberpunk metropolis to uncover deep secrets of the Syndicate in Quantum Replica, a fast-paced stealth action game. So to me, this looks like it is a top-down twin-stick shooter game. It does not strike me as... Is that all the video had? Was that... Yeah, that was 22 seconds. That was the entirety of the video. Well, this one's 1 minute and 28 seconds, so it'll just be a little bit longer if it wants to play. Like, I really need to see some gameplay here, otherwise I'm thinking I'm gonna remove this. Although I guess I don't really have to make a decision at all. It's a 2018 game, I can just put it on the fall list, and this is a great example of why the games are on the fall list. Is brand new games just don't get reviews, but these games are not AAA tier, super cool, super recognizable games that I would want to play for certain, regardless of any lack of reviews. So a great example of a game that I'd play unseen and unreviewed is Darksiders 3. I played Darksiders 1 and 2. As soon as Darksiders 3 comes out, I want to play it. But there really are very few games like that. Most games are released where they are either AA or single A games from indie people who are making new games that aren't sequels to anything. So there is really not a lot of hype to make it necessary to play these games. Now, if my YouTube channel made any money really, then I would buy more games brand new and play games more brand new. But I also don't want my channel to turn into something that I've seen a lot of Twitch streamers do, which is just a constant changing of the game that they're playing to the point where they're not even finishing games. They're getting a third, halfway, 2/3 of the way through a game, and then the next day rolls around, let's play something new. They're just going for the hype at that time. I think Twitch in particular pushes towards that. This is questionable, certainly. I don't know why I would have put this one game over so many others on the wish list. And let's see what this publisher has made. Let's see what that is. I don't think I've ever seen this publisher before. That game seems somewhat recognizable. Oh, the Watchmaker. Yes, I remember. Make sure that's on the wish list as a hidden gem. A lot of these feel like hidden gems, but there's 102 games. Yeah, I'm not sure. There's a lot of games I'm looking at. Guess today would be the day, if there was ever a good day to look at new games. So I don't want to cover a ton of these, but I also don't want to just reject games because of some arbitrary quota where I would say, yeah, I only want to play 5 of this publisher's games. These screenshots do not want to load very fastly. I think I might be on the naughty list with Steam. I've opened so many pages and loaded so many pictures. I think they have decided to start slowing down the connection speed. It's about all I could figure. Unless it's my personal internet, and that's a possibility, but not likely. So yeah, a lot of these games are definitely not worth playing. Really just flooding the Steam market, this publisher is. 2018 was a pretty bad bad year for people trying to play every single game that came out. There's just so many. That being said, there's also a lot of bad games that came out in 2018. El Matador, that was the game I was thinking about playing, and then I removed it because it's just not really worth playing. Let's see. This King's Bounty Crossworlds series, I think, probably is gonna not make it to the wish list. Star Wolves, mixed reviews. A lot of mixed review games. I would think after about the 30th or 40th game that you released it was mixed reviews, you would start to try to rebalance your budget a little bit. I don't think any creative artist or developer of games would want to just always publish mediocre work. But it may not matter to a publisher too. There certainly are some publishers that will just say, we'll publish anything and everything as long as we get our cut. Yeah. So that was quite a lot. Let's see. I'm gonna put this one first on the follow list. That's easy enough to decide. Although it's questionable whether Quantum Replica should even be on the follow list. And then Gift of Parthenax is a 2D top-down action arena game with gladiatorial wizardry. It's came out in 2018, so probably wouldn't play a game like this, but I can put it on the fall list and we'll consider it next year. And let's see, Unknown Fate is apparently something you can play in VR. Action set in a surreal world. I guess I put this also on the follow list. This actually looks way more interesting than the last two games, but it needs more reviews. So put that on the follow list. Let's see, Fell Seal's Arbiter's Mark. I think I probably took this off my wish list. I remember looking at this game when we were looking at games that start with F. It's been so long now. So I'm just going to close this tab so I don't change whatever decision I made before. I think I probably made the same choice here, so I can close that tab too. This Hamrick game, I made a decision and looked at this when I was looking at H's, but I don't, we wouldn't have looked at the Watchmaker since then. So I can, I guess, make the choice to put the Watchmaker on the follow list. This is 80% positive with 20 reviews, so it needs some more reviews, in my opinion. Maybe it won't get them. I may have to lower my standards next year. And then we have Through the Woods, which is a horror adventure third person. Just making a game like this third person makes it more interesting. So I'm gonna add Through the Woods if it's not there before. I'm gonna go back here and close that tab. Now this game, In Fear I Trust, episode 1, Waking Up, it's 50% positive with 20 user reviews. And then there's 4 more episodes for $10. Let's see. And I'd like to see, like, if there's any reviews for episode 4, but it doesn't seem like there is. And as much as I would love to find a hidden gem, the odds tell me this is not. A discontinued series of mobile puzzle adventure episodes. Due to the fact that the story just leads into nowhere. Okay, so yeah. Apparently episode 4 was not the last episode. So just close that tab. And then this one's a 2016 game, so I'd have to decide whether I want to have it on the wish list or not. Let's look at the negative reviews. Metacritic gave it a 51. Let's see. Couple long negative reviews. Yeah, I'm seeing 3 negative reviews. I'm trying to skim them and read them in my head. I should be reading them out loud, but it tells me that this probably is a mediocre at best game, so we can close that. This is a hidden object game. There's no reason for me to put a hidden object game on the wish list. I've got too many of those already. And then Planet Alcatraz. Probably not the kind of game I'd want to play. Looking at it. Yeah. It just seems like it's too old and irrelevant for a 10-year-old game that says it's an RPG. So I'm going to close that. Now, Pilot Brothers is a point-and-click adventure game, so I'm a sucker for that, so I'm going to add those. That definitely it's because they're point-and-clicks. But they're also rated very positively, at least the first one is. And in a slightly different art style. And then this is a point-and-click adventure that's 77% positive, so I don't think it really is a point-and-click adventure though. I think this is probably a hidden object game. Or it definitely has that feel of being more of a hidden object game. Let's watch the video, I suppose. Most hidden object games have this element where you'll see a cutscene, and you'll see several cutscenes that make it seem like it's way more animated than it is, and that the game is way more interactive than it actually is. Like everything we're seeing right now is probably just a cutscene entry into the game. I wouldn't be surprised if there actually is very little. Although we're seeing quite a bit too, so this might just be a very weirdly designed game. It seems like you constantly get in trouble and need to... This feels like a hidden object game that is missing the hidden object elements. Man, this video is going on forever. Well, you know what? I'll just add this to the wish list. If we can get it down really, really cheap, I'm willing to give it a try. But it does kind of feel like it's almost a assortment of puzzles. Let's see. I wonder if this developer has made some other things. A lot of things labeled Premium Edition. Yeah, they have made some games. Well, I'll leave this one on the wish list or add it to the wish list. Now for King's Bounty, I'm pretty sure I made a decision already that this was not going to make it. So I can just close this tab and rely on whatever decisions I made before. It seems like some of these King's Bounty games are liked, or at least they were liked when they came out. That might be more accurate. But I'm not sure you'd play something like this instead of something that's way more recognizable, something like World of Warcraft or such. Then here we have a very positive World of Death to Spies Moment of Truth game that might be a hidden gem. So I'll add that to the wish list. And then here we have another King's Bounty that's rated very positively. I think it's too much of a commitment though. Just way too much of a commitment to play that instead of something else. And Elven Legacy is a turn-based strategy game too, so for basically the same reasons, I'll close that tab. And then Death to Spies. This is the original game in the series. So, I guess that's a potential series I might cover, but a lot of these games are so not unheard of, that they'd be at the very bottom of the wish list in my mind. Just something that I'd consider, but I'd have to consider so many other things that I know are better. And so it's unlikely I'd ever buy the games. But it is also possible that the games go on sale really cheap and then I catch them at that point, whereas AAA games often don't go on sale. Next we have this game called Quattro, Q-U-A-R-T-O, which is some kind of weird board game of some sort. I don't exactly know how it would work or how it could be played, and that intrigues me certainly. It's from Asmodee Digital, which they make a lot of real-world board games and make digital versions of them. Some of them are good, some of them not so good. This one I don't really have to agonize on since it has no user reviews and it came out in 2018. I can just add it to the fall list again, and it's very, very possible this game will still have no reviews by this time next year. And at that point I'm gonna have to either just violate a rule and put it on the wish list anyways, or remove it from the follow list and never let it make it to the wish list. Next we have a game called Cubic, which is mixed, and unless I see something very intriguing here, I think we can just remove this one. We don't really have a lot of games that we looked at that were even up for removal because I was opening more tabs than anything else. Yeah, this looks like a incredibly basic concept of a game. Yeah, I don't see. Honestly, I'm not even sure why this is on my wish list in the first place. I really do think that sometimes I click on the wrong button, or I wishlist a game that somehow gets labeled as a different game. Yeah, there's nothing here. This is an easy decision. Even without the reviews, I think I could have made an easy decision to not add this to the wishlist. So yeah, there's a few. Well, there's 3 games so far on the remove list, where there's far more on the follow list. Next we have Queen's Quest 3. It's part of a series, but it's a hidden object game. If it wasn't part of a series, I would remove it, but I'm keeping the hidden object games that are part of series. That way, if I decide to play some more hidden object games, I at least know I could play 2 or 3 of them and see if you could get maybe some better, longer stories that way, instead of playing random hidden object games that don't have much story at all. And you can see here's a hidden object game that, again, a lot of animation to make you think it's a very interactive experience, but it really isn't. This is every cutscene. This is the actual gameplay. This is more cutscenes. The real gameplay is you're on a, for the most part, static image like this, and you're clicking to go forward, left, right, back. You might hit something like this where you have to do a puzzle or find something, and one of these screenshots will probably show an actual hidden object scene. But a lot of these games that are hidden object games hide it. They totally hide the fact that it's a hidden object game. Let's see, Queen's Quest Tower of Darkness is, I suppose, the first game, and it's 65% positive. So I could be more critical here and remove this game in total, like the entire series. I could. I'm not 100% sure I want to do that because it's being published by a different publisher than Big Fish Games. They're still asking a pretty high premium at $10 a game. The amount of time you spend on a game like this is probably not that long. I wouldn't be surprised if it's like 3 hours or less. And maybe I already own some of the other Queen's Quest games, because only 1 and 3 were listed, whereas 4, which came out recently, and 2 were not on that wish list. Interesting. Next we have a game called Quail, Q-U-E-L, or Quell, I guess. Let's see. It's 98% positive of 140 user reviews. That's very, very high, so I think people know what they're getting. Honestly, this doesn't seem like it's particularly a complicated or deep game. It's just like the other game where you're sliding an object to collect things. I believe this might have a slight variation on that logic because I think eventually you zoom out as you solve more puzzles and you'll fall off the edge of one puzzle and have to interact with the other puzzles. Like this scenery here, maybe you do the entirety of all 4 of these puzzles at the same time. Or maybe not. I could be wrong about that. That would be a cool idea at least. Yeah, I think I might be wrong about that. Ignore what I'm saying. $4 is kind of expensive for 3 to 4 hours, but not crazy expensive. And I guess there's Quell Memento and Quell Reflect, so it seems like it was a mobile game and it was ported right, and I always want to applaud that. So let's see. This developer, also Quell Memento and Quell Reflect, and then several other games that I'm not sure I really have any interest in. Was there anything that caught my eye here? Glitch Runners, mostly negative. The Black Death as a mixed game. Ballistic Overkill. Maybe? I don't know if I'd want to play a random. Aporia Beyond the Valley. That looks interesting. Peregrine. War Tech Fighters. This might be a cool Gundam clone. And then this game, I think it may already be on the fall list. So that's a few more things to look at. So more games of the same style. Very positive, people like them. And then even more games by the same style and people still like it. Here's a great example. 97% positive but only 40 reviews, so it's only rated as positive instead of very positive or overwhelmingly positive. Ballistic Overkill. I'm fairly certain this wasn't on my wish list. It's a first-person shooter. My guess is this is not super populated and it's only multiplayer, and because it's only multiplayer it doesn't make it to the wish list. see how many people are playing. Yeah, there's a small community, but that's not a ton of people. 100. It's probably not enough. Yep. And I don't know what you really do with the first-person shooter community, because you kind of need everybody to be playing the same game. That's where, like, I'd assume Overwatch succeeds, is that it has an active player base. And if somebody wants to play something slightly different, you've got to pull your circle of friends into playing that, and have a circle of friends that are willing to jump to some new game like Ballistic Overkill. And I doubt that this developer and publisher have enough money to do that. Green Man Gaming Publishing, I believe I've heard of them, but I don't think that they're rolling in cash to advertise things. This one in particular is rated very positively. It's a puzzle first-person game. It says it has some horror elements too. I see no reason why this wouldn't be on my wish list, so I'm gonna add it. In fact, perhaps I should put it at the top of my wish list. Let's see, where's the price tag on this? It's been as low as $4.20. It would be a bit of a hidden gem game. I think maybe I'm being too generous because I haven't put anything at the top of the wish list, but I'm gonna put this game because it's a Myst clone, because it's a horror game, and that seems like a unique mix of two different types of styles of games, because it looks very good. I'm gonna put Aporia Beyond the Valley at the top of my wish list, or relatively at the top. It's not, possibly not the very top. Yep. Moving on, I guess. Peregrine is a story puzzle game. Looks like it might be a 2D top-down type game. It's a little unique, but not a big problem. Take control of characters, of creatures, and like possess them. It's an interesting idea. Moving on. Then Wartech Fighters says it has a single player experience. It's 77% positive. Looks like it's definitely a mech fighter game, at least in part. This is possibly a game that I would get into and start playing, and then actually find that it's actually rather annoying. But I'm not 100% certain on that. I'm not sure. This might be really annoying. This might be really good. See, there might be a issue where you get into missions and you just have to destroy ships, and you're just doing tons of damage and shooting at bullet sponges over and over again. It doesn't seem like there's too much else you're gonna do with levels and customizable skins. It feels like you probably are grinding and playing the same type of game over and over again. Not a big player base. I'm gonna leave this on the wish list, but there is definitely a chance that this is a game that I'd only play for like 30 minutes. And that's saying something, certainly at $20, so I'd have to definitely keep that in mind before I actually spent money, whether the game is worth playing or not. See, this game came out in 2018 and doesn't have enough reviews, so all I have to do is put this one on the fall list. I think it might already be on the fall list anyways. Moving on. And we already looked at Quell Memento. Next we have Quarren, Undying Thoughts. Which is, I believe, another Zelda clone. Not Zelda clone, Myst clone. Where you're going to walk around a 3D environment and do puzzles. A lot of 3D puzzle games start with the letter Q. It's rated 91% of 896 reviews, if I'm reading that right. So it's very, very highly rated. I don't think I really have to make a choice here, just leave it on the wish list. That being said, do I really want to play a Myst clone before I play Myst 3, Myst 4, and Myst 5? With two of those games which I don't own, being Myst 3 and Myst 4. And maybe at that point there's almost this backdoor logic where I should take Aporia Beyond the Valley off the top of my wish list, just because I don't want to buy a Myst clone, play a Myst clone, instead of playing Mysts, the original creators of these series. But that's kind of a silly logical thought. I think it's better to say, actually, this game is rated very positively, I want to cover it, and therefore this game should also be at the top of the wish list. Like, I don't think it makes any sense to look at it from a perspective that all the games at the top of the wish list are competing against each other, or in some way in a order of desire. In general, I'm still going to know that I want to play Myst 3 and cover that as soon as possible before I play several other games. Next we have Quest for Infamy, which is a 2014 point-and-click adventure game. It certainly doesn't look like a 2014 point-and-click adventure game. And it's from Phoenix Online Publishing, which I thought for a short time was University of Phoenix, which is a online college in the United States, but it isn't. It's just a name a publishing company decided to use. This looks like an old point-and-click game, except for you're playing as the bad guy, which is an interesting idea. It's rated 91% of 56 user reviews. It's not going to get any more user reviews, so it should just stay at the top at the wish list. I'm not going to put it at the top. So this is definitely an older looking point and click adventure game. Let's see, I guess I could also look at the Order of the Throne and see the other game by this developer and see if I want to cover that. And the page is taking forever to load. And so we could look at the publisher. Nothing wants to load. You have a game called The Last Door Season 2 Collector's Edition, Mobius Empire Rising, let's see, Cognition, Morning Star, Descent into Dead Rock, Supreme League Patriots. A lot of games here that I don't recognize, so I'm gonna just kind of try and look at them all. Here's the Legends. If it's mixed reviews, I'm gonna just leave them off. Yeah, that seems like that's all of them. So Order of Thrones has a point and click adventure again. Rated very positively again. So yeah, I wouldn't probably buy a point and click adventure game that looks like this, because it really is going to come down to, is this actually an old game with which people have nostalgia for? And in this case, not really. So I don't think I'd want to play that. Then we have The Last Door, which is a very pixely point and click horror game, but is overwhelmingly positive, so I'll make sure that's on the wish list. Last Door Season 2, very positive too. Seems like this developer slash publisher is good with point and click adventure games. And then we have Mobius, which is more 3D graphics. It's rated very positively too, as a point and click puzzle mystery. So I gotta learn to skip the cutscenes. But sometimes you don't even get much of a choice. You see, it's not showing you as much as I would like to see. Yeah, again, this looks interesting. It looks old, certainly for a 2014 game though. And then Cognition is another point and click adventure game. So like I said, I am totally a sucker for point and click adventure games. I will inevitably have to lower, well, no, raise my standards and decide which ones are worth playing, which ones aren't. Morningstar Descent into Dead Rock, again a point and click adventure game. I was not expecting this one to be a point and click adventure game. And it's positive again, so I'm finding a bunch. Supreme League of Patriots, also a point and click adventure game. I was not expecting that. This one has no reviews. But I guess this one will fall down to whether Supreme League of Patriots Episode 1 was well reviewed. Then we've got 100% of 10 reviews for another point and click adventure game. Man. And finally, we have something that at least seems like it's not a point and click adventure game. It seems like it's just a more generic adventure game. So I'll put this one on the follow list at least. I can do something different there to see if maybe I'll get some more reviews, but I wouldn't be surprised if it doesn't. And then this one, I think I took this one off, but I think I want to put it back on. Like, they say it's incredibly glitchy, but I kind of want to try it anyways. So yeah, I'm pretty sure I'm pretty sure I'm going in circles here at this point. And then Supreme League of Patriots is rated mostly positive. So that includes all 3 episodes. And only episode 1 is reviewed. This game in particular looks pretty silly. So it might be an interesting story if done right. Moving on to the next game that actually was on the wish list to start with, we have Quiplash, which is a Jackbox party game. Now, in all fairness, I'm going to warn people straight up, this is a game that's only multiplayer. It requires 3 to 8 players to play. So, in all honesty, this is more of a game I want to own to support Jackbox Games, the developers of the Jackbox Party Pack series and the You Don't Know Jack series. But if I was to get this, if somebody was to gift this game to me, that's probably the only way I'd ever get this game. That there is a very low chance I'd ever actually play it. There is some possibility that maybe I could do a live stream and play a game like this, but I would have to find some extra time and have, frankly, quite a lot more people that show up on live streams. Getting 8 people, or heck, even getting 3 people to show up at the same time and do a live stream, it would be incredibly difficult. I was already gifted one of the Jackbox Party Pack games, and I really couldn't cover it very well because of a lack of people to play with at the right time. But I don't want to remove it from the wish list either, because I sort of do want it. Next we have a game called Quote. It has 10 reviews and it's early access. It looks interesting. Hand-drawn action RPG, it says. So for Quote, while it does look interesting visually, it doesn't make the threshold of reviews, but it's early access, so I can, instead of following what I probably should do, which would be to remove it from the wish list completely, I can instead put it on the follow list and come back in a year and hope that more people have played it, and it would be still positively reviewed in a year. I'm trying to watch this video and see. Seems like there's just a lot of people wandering around that you attack, or that attack you. It seems almost like you have a shield bash attack and that's it. Let's see if this developer's made anything else. No, they haven't. Alright, moving on. And we're done. So I managed to still stretch this out into a couple of hours, even though we really weren't covering too many games. We looked at a lot of other games to potentially add. Way more games to add than we actually had on the remove list. The remove list has 3 games to remove, and the follow list has quite a few games to put to the follow list, but that's kind of it. Now I'm fairly certain, like I said, that R and S will be pretty long episodes, but not too long. Yeah, it doesn't look like R is gonna go too far. If I scroll down all the way to the bottom of R's, and I guess I'll check out S later. So, but yeah, I don't think S would be too long either, as I'm scrolling down here. So yeah, it probably will be the T's that will get broken into 2 episodes. So that's going to be it for this recording. I ask at the end of every episode that you like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos, because that helps me with YouTube and tells them that my videos are worth watching. When you subscribe, please click the notification bell. If you want to friend or follow me on social media services like Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr, Google+, Steam, or Battle.net. All of those links are down below. And if you want to support me, there are links to support me through Patreon, or you can friend me on Steam and gift me a game, whether it's a game off the wish list or just any game you'd like to see me cover. If you've seen some games or you can think of games that you think I should cover, let me know in a comment also. If you don't want to make a decision though, you can also gift cards via Steam, which is super helpful too. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.